That's a good goal for Peter Weir. Now Aberdeen with McGee making the break and Hewitt waiting in the middle. Yes!
The last time these two sides met in a Scottish Cup final was back in 2017 when Celtic needed a last-minute winner to deny the Dons. This will be the 151st Scottish Cup final as the two sides go head-to-head to lift the world's oldest national football trophy. Kick-off at the National Stadium on Saturday is at 3 o'clock. Hi everybody, a very warm welcome to Ali Beg ABTV. This is a Scottish Cup final preview show. Now this is pre-recorded, so there's no live chat, so please don't try and do any live chat this evening. It is pre-recorded. We have a bit of a bumper show for you this evening. Coming up, going to be talking to Daily Record journalist who has his finger on the pulse of everything Aberdeen, Scott Burns. We're going to be hearing from 1990 winner Robert Connor, who talks to me about that game and the penalty shootout. And also, Andrew Budge and I analyse our chances against Celtic in the Scottish Cup final. So that's all to come. I'm also going to read out some of the comments that you've left on my social media pages over the past couple of days. So many thanks for doing that. But we're going to get started by predicting the team news. Now, this is not the team that I want to start. This is the team that I think the manager will pick. And I think he's going to stick with his rigid formation that he's played all season. So Dimitar to start in goal. Such a shame his parents can't make it over from Bulgaria due to red tape. But I'm going to keep, or I think the manager will keep, the skipper at left back. Because I wonder if the experience will help him get through. Dante and Leighton to play just in front. Then I think what will happen is the manager will play Jamie McGrath. Andrew and I discuss why we think Jamie McGrath will be picked a little bit later, with Dante playing in the number 10 role. So that's the team that I think the manager will pick. ABTV is brought to you by Saltire Energy, the market leader in drilling equipment rental. But not just that, they offer a wide range of services to the oil and gas industries, with offices based in Aberdeen, the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Here are your match stats, and for us Dons fans, it doesn't particularly make for good reading. So Aberdeen head to Hampden, having suffered 4 successive defeats post-split. The Dons have not beaten Celtic in their last 30 games in all competitions. Holder Celtic have won the Scottish Cup on 42 occasions. Manager Brendan Rodgers has won every Scottish Cup match that he's presided over. Aberdeen and Celtic have faced each other 5 times this season, with Celtic winning 4, the other game being a draw at Celtic Park. The Dons have conceded 19 goals during that time, scoring only 4. The man in the middle is Don Robertson, and on VAR is Greg Aiken. So what we're going to do now is welcome the first of our guests. Robert Connor took his place in the starting 11 against Celtic back in 1990, and he also had to take a penalty during the dreaded shootout. We spoke about a number of things that day, the penalty, and his hopes for Aberdeen against Celtic on Saturday. So welcome back to ABTV, because it's been quite a while, Robert Connor. Good morning, how are you doing? It's lovely to see you.
Hi Ali, no, feeling great. Nice to see you as well.
Good man, good man. Right, let's start by asking you about the preparations for the cup final. How would you assess Aberdeen this season?
Well, that's a difficult one. I don't think Aberdeen's ever had a season like this where they've had such a good start and then it just seemed to fall to pieces. I find that at the time when Aberdeen were really going through the bad spell, it just kind of struck me, and I was thinking, how on earth can a team start so well and then follow that and be so bad? It just didn't make this. It's difficult to grasp how that can happen. It's like we were talking earlier about golf. I suppose it's like golf. One day you're quite good, the next day you're absolutely rubbish. But no, it's been a strange season. And if I was, the manager, Jimmy must be scratching his head, wondering why the same players can be so different. And but thankfully they got it kind of levelled out, and they've been a wee bit patchy up and down after that. But I would say it's been probably the strangest season Aberdeen's ever had.
Do you think we've got any chance in the cup final?
Yeah, there's always a chance. I think in a one-off game, there's always a chance. Celtic are the best team in Scotland by quite a margin. I know that Rangers have had the Old Firm games are a bit special, and Rangers recently have had a couple of good results. But the league's finished, and the problem Aberdeen will have is that this game is their final game for silverware. For Celtic, I'm talking about. Yeah. So there's no doubt that they'll be up for this game. They won't be thinking, as they probably were with Rangers in the league, well, the league's finished, So although the Old Firm game's important, the result, it's not the be-all and end-all, where this game, there's a cup at the end of the final whistle, so Celtic will definitely be up for this game. But while that's the case, you've always got a chance. And Aberdeen are a good side when they're on their game. So they just have to hope that they're going to be on their game on the day, and that Celtic maybe have a wee off day. And thinking back to our game, it wasn't the best game in 1990. I can remember on the day, it was a lovely day. The pitch at Hampden, the grass was a wee bit long. I remember that, thinking that in the warm-up. And with the dry weather and the long grass, it's not conducive for quick passing football. So I suppose that played a wee part into it. But but for this game, I think Aberdeen just have to hope that, the supporters have to hope that the team is on a good day. And if they are, then they've got a chance.
Can I take you back to 1990? You just mentioned it there. In the build-up to the game, did you sense anything different from the managers in terms of mood or preparation, or how they got you guys ready for the final?
Well, strangely enough, the league game before the final was against Celtic at Parkhead.
Yeah.
And there was quite a lot of players were, in inverted commas, rested for that game. And a lot of young players played at Parkhead. I can't remember what the Celtic team was on that league game that day, but Aberdeen won 3-0. And I remember in the papers there was a suggestion that, maybe the same, some quarters they were saying maybe the same team should play, in the cup final. But, the more experienced players come back into the game for Hampden. But so there was a wee bit of preparation went into it and that, thinking it's been a long season, so we'll give some of the players a rest before the game. But no, there wasn't really, other than that, there wasn't really any change for Alex Smith and Jockey Scott there, but they're always positive leading up to the game. And we basically did the same preparation that we did for games in Glasgow as we did for the cup final. So other than resting a few players the week before, there wasn't really any change to the preparation.
Can you remember when he actually officially announced the team to you guys, and when was it? Can you recall?
Yeah, I think the day before at training, we did a bit of shadow play as they do in the park, and without actually saying that's the team, the team that lined up to do a wee bit of structured shadow plays, they call it. I don't know what they call it nowadays, but that was the team that started the next day. So generally, that would happen on a Friday. I can't remember if it was a Sunday or a Saturday, the cup final, but the day before we would generally do, before we travelled down to Glasgow, do a bit of shadow play in the park, and that would be the team that would start. So without announcing the team, kind of knew that would be it. But on the team meeting before we left the hotel to go to the cup final, the team was officially announced then, but it was the team that we did the shadow play with, you know.
Just out of interest, knowing that this was going to be the first cup final that potentially could go to penalties, did you guys practice penalties ahead of the game?
We didn't know, and that maybe some individual players did, but there wasn't any, official penalty practice session arranged with the manager, you know. So, but in those days, I think nowadays it makes sense to practice penalties, and I think people do that now. But in those days, there was a few players probably practiced, but other than that, no, nobody. But generally, no, it was just on the day. I think that the feeling was that you can practice penalties, but come to a cup final, you know, you do the walk up to the penalty spot, you get the ball down. You can't really practice that in terms of the mentality side of things until it happens. But I do think that if you do practice penalties, it is a big help come the big occasion. Although I didn't practice back in the day for some reason.
I appreciate it's 35 years ago, and I'm sorry to ask you to recall from such a long time ago, but that walk up to the 18-yard box to take your penalty, can you recall what went through your mind?
Through my mind, just where I was going to hit the penalty.
Okay.
But I have to say that, and just kind of backing up what I said a wee bit earlier there, when I was walking up, there's only 2 times I can vividly remember in my career, where my legs felt a wee bit like jelly, as they say, you know.
Yeah.
And one of them was when I made my debut for Scotland over in Holland. And just the first couple of minutes. But after that, it went away. And then the walk up to take the penalty, as I was walking up, I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to hit this to the left here, take a straight, side off to the right for the run up, take a run up and hit left foot, take it to the left. But I can remember, legs feel a wee bit funny here. So you just try and ignore that and just try and focus on what you're doing. So that's what I did. As it happened, when I hit the penalty, we try to hit the penalty towards, as I'm looking at it, the left-hand post. But it kind of went halfway between the post and where the centre of the goals is. Maybe a wee bit in my mind, I don't want to hit the post or that type of thing. So it was a wee bit. But fortunately, Paddy Bonner dived the other way. So as long as it was on target, it was going to go in.
Relief?
Oh, massive relief, massive relief. Although looking back at it, looking at the film, the footage you see nowadays, I don't think the relief that I felt was anything like the relief that was in young Graham Watson's face when he turned round, after he'd scored. I think that the look in his face just kind of summed up the relief that every penalty taker really feels but doesn't show.
I was at the game, I was lucky enough to be at the game behind the goal, and Bayern Munich in 1983 at Pittodrie was so tense. In Gothenburg, the final few minutes of extra time was so tense. But I have to say, in all the years supporting the football club, that penalty shootout is a tension that I don't think I've ever felt before or since. Oh my God, it was unbearable. Could you sense that standing in the centre circle while the penalties were going along?
Not really, because I think every player would have been kind of locked in with their own thoughts at the time, and especially if they had a penalty in front of them. So no, it was just that at the end of the game, we'd been in a penalty shootout against Rangers in the League Cup a couple of seasons before, I think, which we'd lost.
Yeah.
So I suppose the penalty shootouts are, if you can hit a good penalty, as I think Anton Rogan's penalty was quite a good penalty.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic save from Theo Snelders. So, you can hit a good penalty and have it saved. So you're just praying that your penalty is good and it's no saved, But I think the most important thing is hitting the target. I think Celtic's first penalty missed the target, I think, if I remember rightly, first or second. The Polish fullback, I think it was.
Dubček, yeah.
Missed the target. So his penalty was actually worse than Anton Rogan's. But it's always Anton Rogan that if you think, who lost the cup for Celtic, the Celtic supporters, it was Anton Rogan missed the penalty,
Yeah.
But, I think just focusing on hitting the target is the kind of main thing when you're stepping up to take a penalty.
Robert, it's been fantastic, as always, having you on. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Pleasure, Ali. Good luck to the Dons in the final.
Yeah, top man. Thanks, Bobby. See you soon.
Cheers, Ali.
Bye, mate. Bye-bye. What a legend, Robert Connor. So here is our Scottish Cup final previous record. 7 times winner, of course, back in 46-47, 1969-70, when we upset all the odds to beat Celtic. Could that be a good omen? 1981-82, 82-83, 83-84, and 85-86. And the last time we won it was way back 35 years ago, 1989-90. 4 times we've been runners-up against Celtic, back in 1936-37, 1953-54, in season 1966-67, where Celtic dominated just about everything, and back in 2016-17. If you are heading to the game and you're looking for a souvenir from the game, why not think about buying a match day programme? This picture comes courtesy of Ignition Sports Media. Quite like what they've done there, looking back at the old shirts and the style of shirts that we wore when we won our Scottish Cups. Let me also gently remind you that ABTV is brought to you by Craig International, where the future of global procurement is very much safe in their hands. It is at the forefront of their business strategy, and they have 10 offices strategically placed all over the world to be able to serve you. On the continent of Europe in Hamburg, out in the Middle East. They also have offices in Australia, where business currently is booming. They're in Southeast Asia, they're in America, and they're also up into Canada, with their main office being back home in Aberdeen. If you're looking for procurement services, I suggest you check out their website, as you will not be disappointed. My thanks as always to everybody who supports me and sponsors me here on Ali Beg ABTV. Right, so I think what we'll do before we'll get Andrew Budge on is just go through 1 or 2 of the comments that you've left on social media, just to sort of gauge a reaction from you guys. So Paul Donaldson said, although we go in as massive underdogs, the cup final is a one-off game and anything can happen. Nobody expects Aberdeen to win this final, but nobody expected Raith Rovers to beat Celtic in the 90s, or Carly Thistle to beat Celtic in the Scottish Cup a few years later, or even Ross County to beat Celtic in a semi-final a few years ago. John Bleasdale has said, all I want is for the team to show passion, show us that they want it, show us they care, show us they've learned. If they do that, we have a chance. A small chance, but a chance nonetheless, he says. Steve Leslie says, regardless of our performances in the last 4 games, this is a one-off game where anything can happen. Now is the time to get behind the lads, stop all the negative comments, and get right behind the players and the manager. I agree. Johnny Wilson has basically said, let's get the formation, the tactics and the personnel right, and we can definitely do it. We have to bin the zonal marking, get close to them, and give their absolute all. Okay, so let's get Andrew Budge on. So Andrew and I discussed how Aberdeen can win this game and also where they can lose it. And what I really hope is that you enjoy this and that it makes some sense. And it just pinpoints where the game can basically be won and lost. It's nearly 13 minutes long, but I really hope you enjoy the watch. Welcome back, Andrew Budge. Hello, mate. As always, it's great to see you. Thank you for jumping on. Right, so ahead of this cup final, you and I discussed, after the Dundee United game, one of our main issues this season, which is constantly losing goals from set pieces. And you and I both think that if we have even half a chance in the cup final, that is something that we need to address.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a really, really bad habit of giving away really cheap goals from set pieces, particularly sort of in swinging corners that we touched on at the weekend. And yeah, it's absolutely crucial for the cup final that we just don't give away cheap goals. In two of the games against Celtic this season, excuse me, we've conceded the initial or the first goal is from a set piece. So just giving them that sort of leg up initially, we just can't be allowing them to do that the weekend if we're going to have any opportunity to get a result and lift the trophy. So yeah, I think it's absolutely vital that we improve our set piece defending. And I think sort of pointing out some of these examples where we need to improve. One would be the League Cup semi-final, but we have a graphic for. Again, as we said, they take the lead. It was a pretty nothing game for the first half an hour. That's kind of how we want it to be, to take the sting out of the game, but we give away a really cheap corner and then a really cheap goal. So it's just really frustrating to see in this example, particularly Mitov being really preoccupied by Maeda. That's something they commonly do, is sort of stick a player right on the goalkeeper, really try and stop them from coming out to claim the ball. And yeah, it's a free header almost for Carter Vickers. These are the sort of things we just can't be allowing in the cup final. So hopefully the boys have been drilling set pieces and Jimmy's been drilling set pieces all week to make sure there's nothing like this. But I mean, even last week we saw Celtic taking the lead again from a in-swinging corner. This time it was Nawrocki. What we wanted to point out in this one was it feels like a real mismatch between Keskinen and Nawrocki there, who's marking him. It just feels like you'd surely have one of your more physically dominant players matching up with the centre back. And although we are only marking partially there, we've got Dorrington and Canuster sort of back post kind of in the same zone. In this instance, it's Nisbet who's the one who's in the central zone who should be sort of attacking the ball, and I don't think he does that with enough sort of determination. I think we may be better placed putting one of our central defenders right in the middle if we are going to go zonal, which I think we will do. We've been doing it for all season. So I think we could maybe think about our positioning of our defenders maybe a little bit, and just maybe getting someone in a central zone to try and attack some of these balls in. But yeah, I don't think we can be, if we are partially man marking, I think we need to think about who we have on sort of Carter Vickers or Nawrocki, because that was a total mismatch last week. But yeah, hopefully these things have been thought about, reviewed in advance of the game. So yeah, proof will be in the pudding when it comes to Saturday. But yeah, hopefully some improvement in our defending there.
Okay, so at the top of the show, I gave my predicted 11, and I ummed and ahed so many times. I must have chopped and changed my team at least half a dozen times. Then eventually I settled, and I went with Jamie McGrath. And the reason that I went with Jamie McGrath is because I just have a feeling that Jimmy's going to employ him to keep Callum McGregor as quiet as he possibly can. I know that means that we might sacrifice some width, but for me, McGregor is what makes Celtic tick. And I think somehow we've got to stop him because his supply line kills us game after game. Do you think that's what will happen on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely. He's definitely got a few selection headaches, Jimmy, with the form we've been in. As you said, McGrath is obviously out the door at the end of the season, but earlier in the year, he was such a key part of our great form and some really positive performances we had against Celtic. a lot of that came from shutting down McGregor in certain elements of the game. And as you said, he was key in doing that, both in the sort of League Cup semi-final, although not a good result, and we fell away as we tend to do. But I think the first half an hour was pretty tight in terms of our defending our out of possession play, and then the 1-0 defeat at Budge in December. In both instances, McGrath was deployed in a sort of man marking role against McGregor, and as you said, he's the sort of key man in build up. Definitely think he is the main sort of cog in how they tick in possession, and it gives them a lot of rhythm to their game. We pull up the example from back in the League Cup semi-final. It's interesting just to see how he's always positioned sort of in front of McGregor and make sure he can't get any passing angles through to him. It really does sort of limit the impact he has on the game. It's interesting that I think that game plan was working, as we just pointed out a minute ago. It was a set piece that sort of undone us in the end. It wasn't sort of us being played through for that opener. It was a set piece. I think our game plan was working up until that point. So yeah, I think we did a good job on that. What I actually think is interesting in from the League Cup semi-final is how high as well Shinnie and Ilson are in that photo. They kind of went man for man with the other two midfielders, Engels and Hatate, and that's a really big ask to be following them around all game. It'll be interesting to see if it's sort of Palaverson and Clarkson, whether they'll be going man for man on the other two, because Celtic, they love their other two sort of eights just to be roaming around the pitch and just going to really wide positions or central and moving all over the pitch and dragging players out of position. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, as we said, I think McGrath is the key man to be on McGregor, and it was, as we said in this example, the exact same in the 1-0 defeat in December, just always in front of those sort of passing angles and making sure he just can't get distribution. And in this example, you can see that space that if the ball does get through to McGregor there, he's got a perfect little pocket of space that he can take the ball in the half turn and really sort of play forward passes. But I thought McGrath that day did a really good job in sort of limiting his impact. So yeah, it's a real sort of selection conundrum for Yemi. If he does select McGrath centrally, I think that could be the best way to go. But as you said, that does maybe impact or what we get, or who we play out wide. It might be then Morris, who's maybe not as sort of tactically aware as McGrath. I wouldn't like to see sort of Pape in a number 10 role trying to mark McGregor. So yeah, I think that could be the way we go on Saturday. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
I think we're all expecting that Celtic will dominate possession and that they're going to have the bulk of possession throughout the game, which makes it absolute key for us that when we've got possession, that we've got to retain the ball and be very clever with it. For me, it could be all the difference. We need to be so careful with our possession.
Yeah, we've given away a couple of howlers this season in terms of losing the ball in bad areas, not being careful with the ball, and Celtic can break so quickly. So we've just got to be really, really careful of how we are in possession. And yeah, it is difficult because we all sort of know how Celtic are going to set up. It's going to be a really high line with really high pressing up the pitch. So in possession, it is really difficult to play through that. There's a really good example of that from the performance at Celtic Park earlier this season that we bring up. Is you just see the number of Shinnie in possession. You see the number of bodies that are just driving straight at and pressurising Shinnie there. You've got three men just looking to dispossess him as quickly as possible upfield. It is really difficult to sort of keep composure in those sort of areas when you're being pressurised so heavily. But what that sort of emphasis on pressing that Celtic have, what that does do is it opens up spaces elsewhere in the pitch. So where you do have a bit of composure and the ability to execute some of these passes under pressure, as you can see here, you've got sort of Nilsson, Jensen, Tobers all sort of urging the play to be switched. And if we do switch there, we do have a decent chance to sort of really attack and exploit the space that's down the right hand side. I actually think, again, it was a really bad scoreline in the end, but I think again, first like half an hour, we had some really, really good chances and we played through Celtic pretty well that day. It was another case of losing the first goal and losing a second quickly after, which we're so prone to doing. But if you can play through them, I think you've definitely got space that you can exploit. So hopefully we managed to do that. But as you said, you have to be really careful and know when to do that and when not to. There might be instances where we've just got to recognise that playing through Celtic isn't possible here, and we might just have to go a bit longer, a bit more direct. If we are going to do that, I just hope that we're a bit more set up to do it. So maybe if we are going to have like McGrath or maybe even Polvara a bit further forward, that sort of size and physicality, if we are going to go long, have them further upfield so we can actually play off the knockdowns and things like that. But yeah, as you said, it's a balance between passing through them and maybe taking the more direct route. But I think we do actually have the ability to pass through them, because I think we saw that in the 2-2 draw back in September. The first goal we get back is a perfect example of where you can really exploit Celtic, where they do pressurise you really high up the pitch. Dilson, who I think we've been missing a lot in recent weeks, has the composure in this example to clip that ball into McGrath, who can take the ball in the half turn. And we all know that pass from McGrath earlier this season was absolutely sensational. And it's just like, as you can see how high that line is there, that's the sort of the area we can exploit if you've got willing runners in behind. I think we'll miss Sockler in this instance, because I think he's a really good willing runner. He might be not as clinical in front of goal as we would like, but he really is a good willing runner, and that was a great goal for him back in September. So I think if we do have composure and have maybe McGrath in central areas, hopefully he's got that sort of range of passing to execute sort of longer balls in behind the defence, and hopefully that pans out in our favour on Saturday.
I think you're quite right. Playing through the central lines, I think, could be key. But I think patience is going to have to be key as well. I've just got a feeling that on the day, we're going to have to be patient. The fans will have to get right behind the team as well. And what I really hope doesn't happen is that we lose silly goals to silly mistakes, which we've been prone to doing all season. And again, key for me is that we don't capitulate, because we've seen, particularly in the past month, where if we go a goal down, heads go down, and you can see the confidence just dissipating. I'm just hoping that we don't capitulate if we lose the first goal. I think it's absolutely key. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really bad habit of just heads going down and just losing control and momentum of the game.
Yeah.
Even against like Celtic, we've been doing that recently, but even a couple of games against Celtic this season, the League Cup semi-finals, 2 goals in quick succession just after the half-hour mark. And then the game at Celtic Park earlier this year, that's some goals in really quick succession after a bright start. We're actually starting these games quite well, and I think we seem quite well set up. But as you said, it's vital just not losing that first goal. And if you do, having the sort of strength and conviction to not fold. So yeah, it's vital, as you said, not to give away some of these sloppy chances.
What I really hope for is a 90-minute game. Oh my God. And if there was a game to do it, and a game that we've been waiting for them to do it, Saturday's the game. Please give us a 90-minute performance.
Yeah, I think I'll be tough, to be honest. If there's one game I think we might struggle to do that, it might be this one. But you never know. Like, I mean, everyone's written us off. I feel like a lot of the media have written us off already.
Yeah.
It feels like everyone's talking about sort of the treble. So it's up to us to spoil the party, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Mate, listen, thank you so much. Absolutely fantastic. And we're going to see you again after the cup final for the review show. So we'll see you a week on Monday.
Yep. See you then.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Ali.
Thanks, mate. Thank you so much, Andrew. Just to let you know, one last sponsorship to tell you about. Delighted that ABTV is also sponsored by Quipco International, a manufacturing and repair service company serving the oil and gas industry. Their headquarters are in Abu Dhabi, and they're perfectly placed to offer a number of services and products to the Middle East and beyond. Again, thank you to all my sponsors. So, let's just read out 2 or 3 more of your comments, and then we'll get a journalistic point of view with Scott Burns, and then we'll wrap things up. So, Neil Marwick simply says, just show up and fight. That's all we ask. Susan Casey said, one thing we ask for is to go out and play with some passion, fight for the badge on the shirt, and give the fans something to cheer about. Derek Heckler says he hopes that Yimi does not leave us wide open in midfield like the last 4 games. If we win that battle, we've got a chance. Chris Clark says this is our chance to put right a lot of wrongs and end the season on a historic high. The players and fans need a big reset on the recent misery and go out there and give it absolutely everything he says. Right. Let's get a journalistic point of view from Daily Record sports journalist Scott Burns, who is very much at the forefront of all stories coming out of Aberdeen Football Club. He breaks just about every single news item that comes out of the football club. So Scott and I caught up a couple of days ago to chat about the game and to ask him if we have any chance in the final. Welcome back to the show, Daily Record journalist Scott Burns. Hi Scott, thank you so much for jumping on, because I know it's a busy week for you guys in the build-up to the Cup final, so I won't keep you too long, but I'd like to ask you, it's a simple question really, do you give us any chance in the Cup final or whatsoever?
I think it's I would put it in the long shot category as it stands. Certainly on current form, and the way Celtic are playing, it's in the long shot variety. But you have it's a final, 2 teams are in it. You've got a chance. Anything can happen. You know what I mean? Far bigger underdogs than Aberdeen have beaten teams like Celtic. You know what I mean? So, anything could happen. But you would think on current form that you can't see past Celtic, but you just never know. If everything aligns, if Aberdeen play to the top of their game, Celtic are not quite at it, and they get a bit of luck, then who knows, 35 years of pain could disappear in an instance. But you would have to say, the bookmakers will make Celtic heavy favourites, and you can see why. I think most of the Aberdeen fans currently would be heading to Hampden in hope rather than expectation. It's not like the last League Cup final that the team won when they were going against Inverness, where Aberdeen were favourites, you know what I mean? And I think the Don support have probably seen sick of the sight of Celtic and Brendan Rodgers teams on cup final days over the last decade or so. But you just never know.
In regards to team selection, I think the manager actually has a little bit of a headache when it comes to who he's going to play, the personnel that he's going to play. And where I am specifically worried at the areas of the pitch is centre-back and left-back. So do you think we could expect changes in those positions?
Well, we were speaking to Jimmy there in the press conference prior to the Dundee United game, and he was talking about maybe his team in recent games had been exposed in areas, and certainly defensively against Rangers and Celtic, they lost a lot of goals, and even when they lost that equaliser against Dundee United, you could see the manager doesn't talk about confidence, but it's clear that confidence is not high amongst the back line, the back area. And as soon as they lost that first goal, it didn't look very good. You think you fear the worst. And of course, Dundee United pushed again and got the second goal. So defensively, there are big concerns there. You say the left back area, Graeme Shinnie has done really well since he went back to left back from midfield, because people were questioning, could he still do the job in midfield? Was he still having the same impact? The manager moved him back to left back. I think he made an impact. I think the concern going into this one was that he got a bit of a run around against Celtic at Pittodrie, and that is the concern that will it happen again at Hampden, sort of thing. But you never know. I mean, that Celtic game, that was like 3 games in a week. An impact, you know what I mean? Graham's got a full week to try and recover from this. And the thing about Graham is that he's a captain, but he's also an intelligent player. Yes. He'll have looked at them video clips, you know what I mean? He'll look, this is what I've done wrong, or this is where I should do better. And in fairness, he's one of his own harshest critics. He'll do his homework on that. So on the left back role, I'd be very surprised if Graeme Shinnie doesn't start at left back. The other option would be obviously Jack McKenzie. Yeah. But we don't know how Jack McKenzie is fitness-wise and mentally and physically after what happened to him at Tannadice on Saturday. So that we don't know with that one. The other option would be playing Nicky Devlin at right back and moving Jensen back across to left back. But I think that impacts the balance of the team. So I would suspect that Graeme Shinnie will be left back. Centrally, defensively, Max Neuster has done really well since he came in. Last few games, it's been a bit shaky like the rest of the team. Christoph Tobels, I think, was quite impressive when he came in as well. He's obviously got an injury. He's obviously just coming back from that ankle injury. And in the meantime, when he was out, Alfie Dorrington came in and did really well. I mean, he really kicked on, and I think he excelled in recent games. So I think the question is, I mean, Alfie was obviously suspended for the Tannadice game. Does he come back in for Christoph Tobers, or does he stick with, or does the manager stick with the team that the back when it started against Dundee United? If it was me, I would probably bring in Dorrington back.
Yeah,
I thought he did really well, but I think the manager might go with a more experienced head.
Yeah. Okay. In regards to how we set up formation wise, sort of tactically, do you think he'll stick with this rigid 4-2-3-1 that he's played all season, or do you think he could surprise us?
Well, it would certainly surprise us if he didn't play the 4-3-2-1. That has been the go-to plan A, B, C, D, E, and F all season. So it would certainly surprise us all if that happened. We've spoken to the manager about this at length. I mean, and we've said, it looks like teams have maybe figured out how to play this formation, and teams are cancelling you out. But the manager's argument is he always backs it, because he says that it doesn't matter if teams know what you're going to do. If your players are good enough and know their job, then they should be one step ahead of the opponent. At times, it hasn't happened that often, but that's what the manager says. So the manager, I don't see that formation. I don't see that formation changing. There'll be tweaks within it. There'll be a sort of, I think, semi-press from the halfway line. You know what I mean? And then it'll be a full-on press the deeper they go. But I don't see the formations changing, although they might have to tighten things up, certainly at the back. And what I would say is, you asked me before if Aberdeen got a chance. I mean, the thing about Aberdeen, that Celtic game, they created chances against Celtic, but it was going the other way. They created 2 or 3 chances and maybe never took one, and then one attack, it scored. So, they can cause Celtic problems. It's just, if they get it right, they have to get it right at the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, thank you so much for coming on, because I know you're really busy. And so enjoy your week, enjoy your cup final, and hopefully I'll catch up with you soon.
Hopefully you enjoy your week.
Thanks, mate.
All the best.
Top man, Scott. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. My thanks to Scott Burns. Right, a couple of more comments just to finish off, and then we'll say good night. So, Susan Walker says, all we ask is that they give it their all, heart and soul, and you never know what might happen. Come on, you Reds. And I'm going to leave the final word to Angela Hamilton, who's a regular on the show, and she says, no matter what happens, we support the lads to the end. Couldn't agree more, Angela. So, we've reached that stage of the show where there's only one thing left to do. And that is to wish the lads and the management the very best of luck against Celtic on Saturday. There's going to be 20,000 Aberdeen fans there. The city has been painted red. Everybody is now getting up for this cup final. We have done our part against all the odds. Everybody doubted us, including the authorities. Nobody thought that we would turn up. Well, we have. So what we now need is for you to turn up on the day. Put a glove on them. All I ask is that you think of your children and you think of your families. Because in years to come, you may have an opportunity to sit down in front of your children and show them a Scottish Cup winners' medal, where you beat Celtic in a final that nobody gave you a cat in hell's chance of winning. And you defied all the odds. Can you imagine doing that when your kids get older? Can you imagine doing that with your family? Showing them a Scottish Cup winners' medal. Just think how proud that your family will be of you. If you can achieve that. But we need you to show fight like you've never shown it before. Heart, guts, bravery like you've never shown before. You need to all give us a 10 out of 10 performance. And you do that, you've got a chance. Just believe. Don't leave anything in that dressing room. Nothing. Come on, lads. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. If you're travelling to the final, have a safe trip. I hope you have a fantastic trip. And I hope I bump into you. I will see you for the review show after the event. Take care. I'll see you very soon. Stand free.